Welcome to this Sunday service of the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship here in Durham, North Carolina, on the ancestral lands of the Eno, the Sissipaha, the Shakori, the Saponi, and Lumbee people. I'm Reverend Jacqueline Brett, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we welcome you. If you're new to this community, and especially if you're visiting with us today, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat box. You'll also find a link there that will help you to learn more about us. And if you are visiting, we invite you to join us for the Inquirers class for visitors and newcomers taking place next week and most Sundays at 12 noon on Zoom. Today's Inquirers class, along with our virtual coffee hour, are on hiatus because of our annual meeting, which will occur today at 1 p.m. on Zoom. And we encourage all members to register to attend, as your presence is needed to form a quorum, and there will be several important votes undertaken by the congregation today. We need you to register by 12:30 p.m. Zoom information will be available once you're registered, and information on how to do so can be found in the chat box or at ERUUF.org under events. If you are not yet a member of ERUUF, we invite you to attend the live stream at 1 p.m. Information on how to get to the live stream will also appear on the homepage of ERUUF.org under events. Just click on Annual Meeting. Today's service is led by Reverend Deborah Cayer with live music provided by Kate Lewis on piano, along with musical offerings by others here at ERUUF. Today's tech team is Jenny Jolly and Sean Tremble. Let us now center ourselves into this time and this place. And let us all take a deep breath in and let it out. We begin with the prelude composed by Eric Thomas on guitar with Helen Wolfson on the hammer dulcimer.
Get up Sunday morning, could decide to stay home and maintain a leisurely pace. Instead I get dressed and looking my best, come here to this church-like place. My community's here, in fellowship we're embracing the whole human race. Support for ourselves and justice for all, promoted in this church-like place. Atheist and Jew, Christians and a few folks just looking for their place. They're all welcome here, they enter with no fear, embraced by this church-like place. Black, white, or brown, raised up or cast down, no matter where your birthplace. If you're LGBT, it don't matter to me, you're welcome in this church-like place. No one gets upset about what you believe, everyone finds a safe space. What makes sense to you might be a mystery to me. We're all searching in this church-like place. We're each on a path to try and make sense of our purpose in life's steeplechase. The answers you'll find will be different from mine, and that's just fine. in this church-like place. Consider issues of morality, justice, wealth, class, and race, standing together in solidarity, united in this church-like place. We think about things that matter in life, the issues that all people face. Our mission is nutrition of the human condition. We all flourish in this church-like place. We all flourish in this church-like place. We all flourish in this church-like place.
Welcome to this church-like place this Sunday morning. Our opening words this morning are by Angela Herrera. She says, "Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life.
Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards and the world needs vision.
Bring these things with you and your joy and your passion.
Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction.
Bring your need for healing and your powers to heal.
There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do it inside yourself within this community. We light our chalice, a small spark in the large universe. It lights the ways of love and justice for each of us and the world. Our first hymn is Gather the Spirit, sung by an ensemble from the Eno River Singers. This will be followed by a presentation from Siembra and C, this month's Generosity Sunday recipient. We begin with Gather the Spirit.
Sympathy. Siembra NC was created during Trump's war on immigrants. We fight against ICE, police brutality, wage theft, and discrimination in schools across 8 different counties, including Durham. In Durham alone, we've trained over 332 Solidarity volunteers to participate in ICE Watch and court accompaniment activities. The first time I personally got to meet folks at the Fellowship Hall was in 2019, when I co-led an ICE verification training that trained over 50 people and filled the room. Since then, we've also gotten to work alongside with y'all at the Alamance County Never Again action and during the Voter Protection Day in last year's election. What we know is that it takes all of us playing different roles to create the people power to make change and win more dignity for more working class Latinx families in our state. When you support Siembra, you support dozens of undocumented working class Latinx members that are actively taking action and building community with the goal of creating a state that gives us dignity and respects our right.
Organizar para mí es enseñar a la gente sus derechos y que ellos sepan que uno solo no puede hacer cosas, pero si nos unimos varios, podemos crear el poder.
Help Siembra build power. Join our journey as we reach thousands of Latinx in our state and engage them into fighting for the North Carolina that we deserve.
Later this morning during the offering, you'll have the chance to contribute to Siembra if you choose. There are organizations this month that we're giving the offering to. Anything in addition, in excess of pledges, regular pledges, will go to them for the fine work that they do in the community because they share our values. This morning's service is about what holds Unitarian Universalists together in the midst of change and how we harvest the power of our tradition. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but now here's some interesting information from the Board's Committee on Evaluation of Ministry about the results of this year's Pulse survey.
Good morning. I'm Julie Edmonds, and I'm here on behalf of the Committee of Evaluation of Ministry, or the CEM, to present the results for the 2021 Pulse survey. The CEM is a committee of the Board of Trustees, and our charge is to evaluate the ministry, broadly defined, of ERUUF. Our fearless leader is Mark Hinault, and Pam DeLabore and Nancy Henley are also members. Every year, we administer the Pulse survey, which is used to check ERUUF's pulse or see how ERUUF is doing. This year has obviously been a very different one than in the past, but the board believed it was important to check in with members around ERUUF's work during the pandemic. This year, we had responses from 213 members and friends, close to the 230 or so that we had last year. Overall, Pulse survey respondents believed that ERUUF had done an outstanding job responding to the pandemic, basically as good as they could have done. Almost 9 out of 10 members strongly agreed that for them, ERUUF was doing well. For the first time, we also asked a question about whether ERUUF was a radically welcoming community, and over 80% strongly agreed with that statement. On this slide, you will also see some sample quotes that were typical of people's comments about ERUUF's response. For some people, ERUUF was a true lifeline during these challenging times. People noted that ERUUF's response was exemplary. People also acknowledged the rapidity of ERUUF's response. One person said how the board and staff listened to the congregation early on and pivoted so quickly to respond to COVID was inspiring and necessary and has helped us all get through a very difficult year. Some people thought we should not administer the pulse at all this year because it would not be fair to compare the findings to previous years. And it certainly would not have been unreasonable to expect that we would have seen lower ratings on most, if not all, of the activities. Interestingly, that isn't what we saw. The areas in the strengths column are places where we saw ratings that were higher or about the same as in previous years. The racial equity and inclusion work was a real strength, with more than 90% of ERUUF respondents reporting that ERUUF was working harder or just as hard on this area as prior to the pandemic. Other areas such as pastoral care, the ministry team, small group ministries, congregational communications, and financial management and stewardship were either rated essentially the same or slightly higher than they were last year. Of course, ERUUF did face challenges. We were in the middle of a pandemic, after all. There were several different survey items indicating lower levels of engagement with ERUUF. For example, more than half of the respondents indicated that they were somewhat less or much less likely to be involved with ERUUF activities than before the pandemic. And we know that the Sunday services and coffee hour have had lower levels of participation. Children's RE was a particular challenge, and the staff are working on understanding what the next steps should be. Finally, people acknowledged that there were lessons learned from the pandemic that we did not want to lose. One particularly prominent lesson was the desire to keep the opportunity for online engagement, making services and other activities available to people who cannot physically come to ERUUF. Another area were the special efforts made during the pandemic to connect with ERUUF members. Respondents believed that it was important to continue those efforts. Now, this is just a taste of the information available in the Pulse survey. A full copy of the results, which will be available as a PowerPoint and in report form, will be located on the ERUUF website. The ERUUF board and staff will be using this information to inform their planning for the upcoming year. And we also hope that other ERUUF teams will use this information. If you have any questions or want more information about the Pulse, please feel free to contact any of the members of the CEM.
Our reading this morning is from the writing of our esteemed and wise colleague, Alice Blair Wesley. And Reverend Wesley writes, "It makes sense to me to believe all the great religious traditions of our world began with somebody's extraordinary insight into what, and all this great buzzing, banging, blooming, and silent mystery really matters most for human beings to love, to understand, to trust, and be faithful to, because it is life-giving and life-enhancing. If anybody wants to call such extraordinary insight revelation, it's all right by me. The question of revelation is, why should one person or one group ever understand anything and others not? I don't know why, but what is truly wonderful about extraordinary insights is they can be communicated, shared, taught to others who see them then too, and generate whole cultures from them. Our word religion derives from the same root present in the word ligament. Without healthy, and importantly, true religious insights into the mystery of our lives, we're like Ezekiel's pile of dry and unconnected bones with no ligaments. A vital religion keeps us tied together so we can stand up and move and get things done and live with love and meaning together. You and I stand as Unitarian Universalists in the long tradition of the covenantal free church. We add the word or the adjective liberal and say ours is a liberal free church, meaning our everyday world has forced upon us the recognition that no one religious tradition has a monopoly on right love and truth. We infer from our encounters with other traditions that there have been and are people of extraordinary insight into what really matters for human beings in every time and clime. Therefore, though the depths of our own tradition are more available to us through inheritance and are the depths from which we must live, we want to and we will try to be open to others. We are not exclusivists, claiming our way is the only good way. Yet we do especially treasure our own religious tradition precisely for its political relevance, for its constant reminder to us that human freedom and human health is a function of how we organize socially, what is the shape of our economic and governmental as religious institutions. You and I stand as Unitarian Universalists in the long tradition of the covenantal free church. We add the adjective humanist and say ours is a humanist tradition, meaning our everyday world has forced upon the recognition that valid religious insights, even the most extraordinary, are always rooted in ordinary human experience of concrete events. To know anything at all about reality in general or God, we make inferences from our limited experience to great encompassing truths, not the other way around. Therefore, even those insights we claim and stake our lives on are to be stated humbly, not in a doctrinaire fashion, always with the awareness that we might be wrong. Faith is best understood, not as certainty, but as sufficient confidence and trust in what we have been given and called to do, that we can be faithful together, covenantally. I invite you to join with me now for a time of spoken meditation and prayer. Spirit of life that brings us the sounds and beauty of springtime shifting into an emerging summer. Spirit of love that forms the ground of our being, we begin by expressing our gratitude for all aspects, small and great, that serve to remind us that even in the most difficult circumstance, there exists a shard of light that illumines our way if we but seek it. Even when it appears as the tiniest pinpoint, it beckons us forward into a new possibility, a new hope, reminding us that there is also light radiating within us, and we only need tend to it. And so we sit for a moment of silence as we contemplate the light that graces our being. We offer our gratitude even as we hold in our hearts our great concern for the lives that have been lost the world over in troubling situations too many to name. Our very deep frustration at the gun violence that rages throughout our own land, senselessly claiming lives yet again. And our distress at the ever-widening divisions that plague our nation. As a people who proclaim the interdependence of all, our hearts cry out for love, expressing itself as justice that restores and heals us all. May the cries of our hearts become the actions of our hands as we join our lights together as the beloved community we long to be, creating the world we so need and long to see in this very moment, on this very day, and in all the moments to come. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
A sigh that is wafted across the lonely plains. 'Tis a wail that is heard upon the shore. 'Tis a dirge that is murmured across the lonely grave. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's a song, a sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
Thank you, River Folk. Part of what's held us together this past year has been the vitality and the gifts of so many of our members and the ways that's been expressed in words and especially in music. We're really grateful and we're glad that you have been able to get together all this time, and we can't wait to see you again in person. I want to give a special shout out and a special thanks to Christy Chilton, who has produced so many videos for so many of our music groups. It's been a labor of love, and we have been the beneficiaries, so thank you, Christy. ERUUF's annual meeting will be this afternoon. Members will elect new board and nominating and healthy congregation committee members. and members for the search committee for ERUUF's next lead minister. We'll approve next year's budget. This coming year, which begins on July the 1st, is going to be a year of big change. And all of this is happening just as we return together post-pandemic, which already is requiring that we do things so differently in some ways. Big change here is going to continue amid ongoing big changes in the world. And I want to check back in on that. I want to come back to that in a little bit, but first I want to talk about our Unitarian Universalist tradition. What is it that holds us together? And how can that help us in the midst of such big change here and also in the world around us? As we just heard, Alice Blair Wesley reminds us that our Unitarian Universalist movement came out of the free church movement in Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries, when religious liberals rejected corrupt hierarchical church authority. They relied on what they read in their Bibles about the earliest Christian communities. And what they read inspired them to be loving and inclusive. They shared food and resources equally among themselves for the good of all, and also to help the sick, the hungry, and the poor all around them. In their Bible study, they read about a loving God, and in the Hebrew prophets, they heard about a God who wanted them to be free to make their own spiritual decisions out of their own life experience. And even though God urged them to choose love and justice, it remained their choice. Out of love, they wanted to do this, but it was their choice. So they accepted that holy offer that they heard in the scriptures, and they decided to organize themselves around the freedom to choose to join a spiritual community rather than be assigned one by the state, and to choose their own spiritual leaders. They weren't held together by the same creed, but by their promises to love and care for one another. If you have ever been in a relationship, any relationship, a friendship, family, excuse me, a love affair, parenting, you know that it is not easy. It's sometimes absolutely astonishing how two people who love each other a whole lot can set each other off in explosive ways. It's astonishing how life gives us opportunity after opportunity to make choices about how we're going to respond. Jewish philosopher and theologian Martin Buber said, "All real living is meeting. All real living is meeting." He talked about the difference between an I-thou versus an I-it relationship. In an I-it relationship, we see others as what they can do for us, functional. How can we use this to our best purposes, our own purposes? But in an I-thou relationship, others are fully human, they're fully endowed with the same rights that we have. And there's an equality and an equity in I-thou. It's in I-thou relationships that human meaning is fully discovered, fully experienced. Because it's not just us and them, there's this space between us, and when we each enter that space between us, between self and other, we discover something more. We're more together in that space. Because Buber said God, the sacred, love, is in that space. And because of this, we are something so much more together. So covenantal relationships and covenantal community are never a once and done thing. Covenantal relationships and community at their best create a space that can hold all of us, the good things and also our brokenness, as we make choices over and over to come back to the promises that we've made, that we've broken, that we've failed at, and begin again in love. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. We harvest the power when we turn back to each other in love, to show up across our differences. The power that comes out of our way of doing religion is the power of pluralism, the power of allowing for differences that are the result of acting on our freedom. Difference isn't a problem, it's the prize, which is not how the world often reacts, but when we're at our best, it's how we react. This just makes so much sense when you've seen the world this way, when it's what your soul is yearning for. And this is an important part of why so many of us feel like we're falling into place, like we're coming home when we first find a place like ERUUF. This experience is so precious and important. It's like the ligaments that allow the dry bones in Ezekiel's vision to come together again as a new body, as new life. Those ligaments give us the ability to move forward with power and with purpose, not just alone, but also with others in community. There's a vitality and a livingness in all of this, and we call ours the living tradition. We move into that space between us and others, and we discover that it's also the place where the sacred lives and breathes, however we each understand it. Henry James called it the more. This sense of life at moments being fuller, laden with meaning that we hadn't experienced before. When we experience this in relationship, we suddenly know that we're not isolated. We exist in relationship with all others and with everything else. But in times of change, especially in times when you're surprised that others know and feel something different than you are feeling, it can feel like someone is trying to pull away that beauty, that fullness, more, thou, sacredness, wholeness, that they're trying to pull it apart. And when that happens around something so essential, it can feel at times as threatening as death. And none of us want to die, to become a pile of dry, dead bones. And so we resist. It's natural. It's a natural response. And the result can be conflict over whose view of reality is more real. This feels at times tremendously unsafe, all of which is understandable, but it doesn't have to be inevitable. It's also not our tradition to cling tightly to just one point of view. Our way of doing religion is to invite in multiple points of view and call it good. What we haven't fully incorporated into our tradition is a good understanding of power analysis. But we could look to recent liberation theology for how to do that. In the past 50 years, people in Latin America who were struggling against oppression sat together and they read their Bibles, just like our ancestors did in the 16th and 17th centuries. And what they discovered was the part in all of the stories in the scriptures where God is always on the side of the people with the least power in the situation. Always. God is on the side of those with the least power. This has given them the strength and the courage to organize for their human rights in the midst of overwhelming oppression. In our own country, we experience oppression according to the color of our skin. This works as long as white people are unconscious about this, and there's lots of pressure on white people to stay unaware. But we've begun to see this injustice as it plays out on our screens, for better or traumatic worse, over and over. We've begun to be able to see that different skin colors get treated in lethally different ways. I, as a white woman, get stopped for a broken taillight. I get treated politely, get handed a citation. The situation is an unpleasant hassle, a delay, but then I'm on my way. But when a black man or woman is stopped, they're often treated with suspicion, sometimes told to get out of the car, sometimes are spoken to harshly as if they're a dangerous suspect. They're often disrespected, sometimes cuffed and taken to jail, sometimes beaten and worse on the spot. And we've seen this over and over. It's not right, and we know it. and it's not isolated. It's connected to deep racial bias that's been installed in each of us, like our country's operating system. When we talk about dismantling racism, this is what we're dismantling. The operating system that gives white people free passes and special privileges, while it demeans and takes away basic human freedom and civil rights and the very lives of Black and brown people. We dismantle this oppression by getting conscious about all the ways that we've learned to unconsciously keep it in place and give it up. Do something different. And at first, it can feel scary and bad because we're breaking some pretty fundamental rules of our country's operating system when we do this. Even so, this past year at ERUUF, we leaned in hard on racial justice, equity, and inclusion. By choice, by plan, by goals that we set last spring, after talking with our members, after leaders talked with each other and listened deeply to what was stirring in their own hearts and minds. We've also learned that caring about racial justice, equity, and inclusion is not either or. This doesn't mean that we don't care about white people or that we're trying to flip a hierarchy and put people of color on top in just a different oppressive system. What we're trying to create is equity for everyone, which means that we need strategies to get some power, at least, to the people who have less or none right now. This is also not brainwashing. This comes out of our own thinking, study, learning, and talking together. It comes out of our experience. In our tradition, there's the power of the pulpit, and there's also the power of the pews. Before I or anyone else preaches a sermon, to prepare, we read, we study, we talk with other people. Then we show up and we give you the best that we've got of our thinking and of our discernment. And we give this freely, knowing that it's your job to pass all of this through your mind, through your heart, do your own thinking, your own discernment, talk with your own groups, see what makes sense to you. I'll just add that who you read, listen, and talk with makes a difference. If you only do this with others who are just like you, you're going to confirm your biases and your existing worldview. But if you expand your circle, diversify your thought partners, your sources, the voices you hear will influence you in new and challenging ways. We can look to our tradition for inspiration. We are accomplished at doing this. We are accomplished at making the circle wider. Compassion makes all the difference as we do this. And so we begin wherever we are with compassion for ourselves, and we extend it to others. Compassion is not an easy pass. It doesn't mean that we go back to the imbalanced way that things were. True compassion works for equity and justice. And we're going to need all the compassion we can summon going forward, because as we begin to come out of the pandemic, we are all hurting. And our discomfort can come out in ugly ways, on airplanes, in stores. Our anxiety and stress can leak out in hurtful, destructive conflict, insult, even physical assault. So we can just notice all of this, and we can plan for it as we come back together as a community. We can plan to slow down and listen to each other. We can ask curious, open questions in order to better understand each other. If we begin by assuming differences, not sameness, it's a little easier to communicate about differences with respect. We can also remember that some of us have had much more stressful experiences this past year than have others. That Black, Indigenous, and people of color are in a world of hurt that most white people can't even begin to imagine. And we can just believe each other and be respectful and kind. It's worth it for all of us to make this effort because our democracy, our full freedom is what's at stake. If we're fighting with each other, we can't get out and fight for democracy. And who's that working for? Covenant can help us. When we recognize that we've done something that's not in alignment with who we want to be, we can apologize and we can begin again in love. We can also set ourselves up to act in ways that are kind and inclusive. And we can give each other some breathing room and not rush each other. We don't have to pack our agendas or pack our planning calendars. We can leave time for meaningful conversations. We can make room for jangly feelings and tears. Emotion needs to go somewhere, and it can emerge harmlessly in our midst if it's met with compassion. And after all we've been through, we can notice and name everything that's happened and all that we're feeling in order to imagine something new together, something bold that has never been tried before. These are some of the very best ways we can practice being I and thou in beloved community together. Some of the best ways to gather the Spirit and harvest the power of our spiritual tradition. It's some of the best ways that we could ever begin to help create the common good for everyone and for the earth itself. This is a good story. It's good to be in it together. And we shall go onward to the future that's coming toward us. Blessed be, friends. Blessed be. Amen. So this morning's offering is a time to consider what you have for gifts and talents, what you can contribute to the good of this beloved community, and also just what can you give to the world. If you wish to make a monetary contribution to help Siembra in addition to pledges, that's awesome too. All of that will be sent directly to them later this month. And so at this time, the morning offering will be found by a link in the chat box. To create equity and justice and true lasting peace. Amen. We give thanks for all that helps to weave the fabric of this beloved community. Our closing hymn this morning is For This We Stand, and Pam will lead us now.
For this we stand, all peoples of the earth, in spirit as in law, across the sacred land, all worth and dignity bestowed to each as right of birth, our lives in interdependence, for this we stand. 'Stand. 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 ' For this we stand, one human family, evolving tapestry spun of a single strand of earth and water, born this harvest of diversity, one flame of life bright within us. For this we stand.
Our closing words come to us from Unitarian Universalist Wayne Arneson. He says, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone." We take our love, we take our courage, we take our faith with us this day into the light of the world to offer some of what we have to others who would be so glad to know about it and to join us if they only knew. Blessed be. Amen. Go in peace.